Okay, everybody, we're going to practice something today called perspective, and specifically something called one-point perspective. In art class, when we talk about the word perspective, we're talking about a work of art that shows distance and a large area of space. So some objects in this picture that are near, close to us, and some that are farther away. And as you get farther away from objects, they start to get smaller and kind of vanish away from you. So that's perspective. Let's look at a couple pictures of city drawings that show perspective. Look at this perspective right here. These buildings are very large. You can imagine that the person who's looking at this work of art is far away from these buildings in the back here. They're closer to these. So as the buildings go back into space, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. This is a different type of perspective. This is kind of like the corner of a city. So you can see these buildings very large, and as they go back into this corner and this corner, they get smaller and smaller. And then this perspective is a little bit different. You can imagine that the person who's looking at this is kind of hovering above these buildings, and as you go down the buildings, they get smaller and smaller, but the rooftops are very large because they're close to you. So an artist that we're going to get some inspiration from today is an artist named Ben Hine. He works with this work of art right here. He created this work of art, and it shows some perspective just like those cities that we saw. Kind of looks like he's standing on top of the rooftops here, and he's looking down, and he's seeing the perspective of these buildings. He does this type of artwork. He makes a drawing, and he puts his drawing into a photograph background to show certain scenes. Kind of like this one looks like a video game, and this one looks like a crowd of people. So what we're going to practice is this type of perspective. We're going to make a city that looks like it's going way back into space. And then later we're going to add our drawing of a shoe on the top of the building and take a photograph of us actually being inside of our drawing. So the first thing we're going to talk about in my next video is how we create these buildings that look like they're in the correct perspective. We're going to use something called a vanishing point. We're going to use rulers to make straight lines, and we are going to practice perspective.